What's up, everyone? I'm here. We got an awesome episode today, a great guest. We got Mr. Nick Logan, co-head coach of Lowell High School, one of the most storied programs in the region, and a head assistant at one of the greatest clubs in the region, Doughboy Wrestling Club. Nick Logan, how we doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit, so it should be good.
Awesome.
First, the usual question, how did you get started in the sport? Like, what did anything draw you to wrestling specifically back in the day?
So I started a little late. I didn't start till high school. And it's kind of funny. Like, I grew up with brothers, so we were always wrestling around and all that stuff. But I grew up playing baseball. And it wasn't until my freshman year in high school that I started wrestling. But it's funny because I played like a little bit of Pup Warner, and I used to cry. I was a little fat kid crying at Pup Warner practice because it was too hard. And then my brother wrestled a little bit his freshman year in high school and told me that it was way harder than football. And I was like, how's that possible? Football was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But then I got drawn to it my freshman year and haven't looked back since.
Yeah. Can you share some of your personal achievements and highlights,
So yeah, like I said, I started a little late as a freshman, but I came into like a great program at the time, Lowell High.
Was it Lowell?
Yeah, it was Lowell High, and they were, I was just on the freshman JV team my freshman year, but they won states my freshman year. We won states 3 out of my 4 years I was there, and I didn't even really get into the lineup until my senior year. Yeah. But my senior year, I won Lowell Holidays, and was a state and all-state place winner.
Nice, yeah. Was it so like I said, Lowell's one of the most storied programs in the region. So when you went there, it was just wrestling business. That's how it was. It was a business, team just went in, competed, everyone expected the team to do great.
Yeah, it was a great culture, and that was, that's all been a lot of part of my motivation in coaching at Lowell High now and I know we talked a little bit about this in the fall. But getting the numbers up and bringing that winning culture back. But yeah, I was a little spoiled because I just came into the sport and it was like you're expected to win state titles. You're expected to be competing for New England titles. So that was really all I knew at the time.
And then, however, a few years or however many it took down the line, when did you start to realize that you enjoyed coaching and being in the corner of the mat rather, than being in the middle?
I would say it was right away. Like, for some reason, I just always kind of had a knack for coaching. I remember like my senior year, Coach O'Keefe, I had Coach Bossy and Coach O'Keefe for my coaches at the time. And I remember him pulling me into some open mats to work with some of the younger kids. And it was something I always enjoyed. But it wasn't really until after completing my senior year. And in the spring of my senior year, Mike Marshall had me, come down. We were at the boys club at the time where Doughboys was, and start coaching the youth. So I kind of jumped right into coaching the youth at Doughboys in the spring of 2005, my senior year.
Was it Doughboys at the time, or was it something else?
Yeah, so it was Doughboys. He started in 2004 with some small group stuff with a small group of kids, but he got space at the it was where the Lowell Boys Club was it was where the Lowell youth ran out of the Lowell Boys Club. So he got space there, and he ran there for a couple years before getting the new facility we're at now.
Gotcha. And did you feel kind of nervous, being trusted with the responsibility of being in charge of the youth kids, coaching them, make sure you want to show them the right technique?
Yeah, to be honest, it was just something I always enjoyed. I always enjoyed coaching, and I definitely have like a special knack for the youth and for working with the little ones. But yeah, I don't know. I just enjoyed it. Like I knew my junior, senior year in high school that I wanted to be a teacher and coach at Lowell High at the time. And life took me a couple different directions, but I did end up back here teaching and coaching at Lowell High, which was the original plan.
And, you touched about it a little bit earlier with the philosophy of your coaching and how you want to keep instilling the winning culture at Lowell and stuff, because that's what you had. So, have you changed the way you've instilled that over the years, or has it just been a constant form of coaching?
I think I've definitely, changed and adapted philosophies and stuff over the years, but I don't think it's changed too much. I think you just got to change with the times a little bit.
Yeah.
I've heard in the past people like say things like, "Oh, this generation is different and these kids are different," and I don't really agree with that. I think times are different, and got all this stuff, social media and technology can change things, but I think kids are still the same at heart, and I think it's up to you as a coach to bring that grit out of them. And I think this is a great sport in this day and age to get that.
Mm-hmm. And you coach Lowell. You got a lot of kids. How many kids did you end the season with?
We ended the season with probably overall close to 60 kids finishing the season, which I was pretty happy about. It got to the point where we were like telling our JV kids to go away towards the end of the year. So many kids, and we're like, we want to kind of start to hyper focus on the guys getting ready for sectionals and stuff like that. So once the dual meets kind of ended, we kind of let a lot of those guys cut it loose. It was a long season, and shifted our focus towards the guys going to the postseason.
Mm-hmm. And out of those 60 kids, what percentage would you say wrestle or like still wrestling now, wrestling in the off season?
So we've got a good amount. I mean, it's always a push to get these kids down to Doughboys more. It's in there.
I imagine you tell them like, hey, we got to focus on these guys training for the postseason. If you want to scrap, I know this great place.
Right. Yeah, and I give them a little bit of a break, when season ends. But once we start up the spring session at Doughboys, they're all encouraged to go. There's probably been like a total like maybe 20 kids that have been showing up on different days. It's not like you get 20 kids down to Doughboys every night, but you might have 5 or 6 kids on one night, another 5 or 6 kids on another night. But I've got like
about a third of them.
Yeah, I've got a good handful of kids that have shown up super consistently, which is good.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And sometimes, like, let's say you have this kid who they're coming consistently for multiple practices straight, and then they kind of fall off. What do you do to kind of like motivate them to be like, hey man, like you should get back in the room a little bit if you want, like do you take that route, or do you just be like, oh, they don't want it?
No, I do. I'm pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Not stubborn, but like persistent. I'm pretty persistent with these guys. So if I notice they're missing for a while, I'll get on, every couple weeks I'll get on my phone and start sending out texts, and it'll be like 30 different kids getting texts from me. So every once in a while, every couple weeks, when I notice kids are, slipping off a little bit, I'll start getting on them and texting them and trying to encourage them to get down. It's also a lot of like travel stuff and dual meet opportunities for these guys. So that's definitely something I encourage them to do. Which I've had a good amount of kids getting some competition in, which is good with Doughboys. So
what's up, everyone? I'm here. Sorry for the interruption. Jay Jones, head coach of Rhode Island College Wrestling, is with me, and we're here to talk to you about a great opportunity in the Revolution Wrestling Festival.
Yeah, we're so excited to host both duels, individual, 3 styles, men, women, boys, girls, opportunity for everyone. And right in the Boston area where the Revolution all began. So the Revolution Wrestling Festival in the Boston area. Check us out on Flow to sign up. And we're so excited to have you guys. Great medals, great flags. Invest in your sport, invest in your off season, and invest in a local event.
And, can you describe a typical practice at first at Lowell High? And I'm talking like middle of the season, like, everyone knows stance, shoot, how to sprawl, all that.
Yep.
So what does like the middle season practice look like for Lowell?
So it's very similar throughout the season. We're big on basics. Coach Bossy's still on his feet, coaching every single day. So sometimes it's a battle with him to get to get what I want in a practice. But usually we're pretty much on the same page for the most part. But that's what he's very basic heavy. So we're drilling our basics, we're drilling our doubles, we're drilling our stand ups. So we add stuff as the year goes on, but we drill. I will say, and this is like kind of the Lowell ways, we drill at nausea. You know what I mean? We really,
go.
We're drilling it. We're drilling a lot of the same stuff every single day throughout the season. And one of the things that like I've always loved about the Lowell program is that like even some of your lower level JVs will have good technique, and they know the skills, and I think that's very important, because then when they're the next year when they're ready to compete and step in the lineup, at least their technique is there for the most part.
Yeah, like you said, you didn't crack you said you didn't crack the lineup till senior year, right?
Right.
And you won Lowell, you won holidays that year.
Right.
So it goes to show that you're a perfect example, coming off the bench for senior year or coming off JV for senior year, just stick in the lineup, boom, probably, what'd you place in you said you placed at all states, right?
Yeah, I was fourth at the All States.
Yeah. Dude, that's insane, going from JV to fourth in all states, but it just goes to show the depth of the program, and how these elite programs in the region, 1 through 14, top to bottom, 1 through 28, top to bottom, they're deep.
Yeah, and I think it's great to, numbers, I think, across the region, across Massachusetts and New England and everything are up, which is great to see across the board. And I think anytime I've seen, I just finished my 6th year at Lowell High, and I think anytime you have kids fighting for spots, it's huge. I remember my first year, I'd have a kid come half an hour late to practice and be like, "Coach, I was getting a haircut," and I'm late to practice, and it's like, "Well, we need you in the lineup tomorrow, so hop in, start drilling." But we had like 12 kids on the team at the time. Now we got 70 plus kids on the team between the freshman calf and the varsity room that you're replaceable. Everybody knows they're replaceable, and I think that's important.
They keep the fire under everyone.
Yeah, and you got guys wrestling off every week for their spots. I had a couple weights where it flip-flopped every week. This guy would beat this guy, and then I had 3 guys going for one weight, and it changed every week, and I think that just helps.
What was the most kids you've ever had? Like, have you ever had to have like a mini tournament for wrestle off?
That's stuff that we do that's pretty cool. We do all the time, at Doughboys. For a lot of these dual things, and it's awesome because you'll have like some serious high level kids in like a little round robin bracket to wrestle off for a spot. But yeah, Lowell High probably like a little 4-man round robin going for the same spot. But like I know this spring we had a couple with certain weights where it's like you have like a legitimate like 8-man bracket full of like state champs and New England place winners battling for one starting spot.
You're talking about Doughboy, right?
Yeah, Doughboys. Yeah. Doughboys.
Yeah, like a great talent in the room over there. We talked about practice at Lowell. What does practice look like at Doughboy?
So, we've stayed very consistent over the years with kind of how we run our ship. But we come in, get a good warm up. A lot of times there's some downtime in the weight room before they get into the wrestling room. Yeah. So we usually shout off some push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups and stuff like that in the weight room while they're waiting. Coach Shoneman is not a fan of letting kids sit around. So he's always, if he walks in and kids are sitting around, he gets on them super loud. So anyone that goes to Doughboys is familiar with that. But we come in the room, we'll do a warm-up, jogging around the mat, kind of like a typical wrestling warm-up, maybe some stance and motion, and then we'll get right into drilling. And we have like hour and a half practices, so it's usually a good hour of drilling and half an hour live, and oftentimes a little bit of conditioning at the end.
Nice. And then how much, like, how long would you say you're in that weight room for a little before you hit the mat, like 15 minutes or something?
Yeah, about 15 minutes before practice.
Cool. And how do you guys, how much do you focus on nutrition and diet and physical conditioning and weight cutting properly at Doughboy? Is that something you guys emphasize?
Yeah, a little bit. It's definitely something that, like, we always have post-practice talks and post-practice speeches for the kids, and that's something that we'll definitely touch on. We'll have kids walk in the middle of summer in like a hoodie and sweatpants, and we're like, no, that's not going to fly. Like, take off the hoodie, wrestling shorts and a t-shirt, and go hard. Because there's nothing worse than a kid in a hoodie and sweatpants dogging it in practice and not moving his body, So we always encourage, shorts and a t-shirt, work hard, and that'll take care of itself. But I know I mentioned Coach Shoneman. He's very notorious at Doughboys for his Shoneman speeches, we call him. So sometimes the kids will get 20 minutes to a half an hour of nutrition talk after practice if Coach Shoneman's on the mic. So there's plenty of discussion about that stuff.
So kind of moving on to, some big points in your coaching career, or like in your mind, some big points. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've encountered, and how have you managed to overcome them as a coach?
So I think it's just working with, different age groups, different genders. I've been I've been coaching girls for a long time now.
Yeah, well, very successful girls team.
Yeah, so I actually coached. So I started coaching at the youth level with Doughboys. And then while I went to Rhode Island College. I saw you actually had, shout out to Jay Jones. You had Jay Jones on here the other day. He's a big mentor of mine. He was my college coach. And then I actually got the privilege to coach with him for 2 years. So that was some great experience too. So I was coaching youth and high school while I was in college. Like all the summers I'd be home, I'd be coaching the youth and the high school at Doughboys. And then, but that was very interesting coaching, young adults and adults at the college level. A lot of whom were my teammates, and then transitioning into a coaching role for them. So there were some challenges with that. But yeah, like I said, I think that's a big challenge, is kind of bouncing around roles from youth to high school to boys to girls, and you got to adjust accordingly.
And what would you consider maybe either your greatest or your most favorite accomplishment that you've had as a coach?
So I don't know. It's hard to say. I try not, I don't think a lot of in terms of like accomplishments, like achievements, like winning, winning Thousand Island duels with Doughboys or getting New England champs and All-Americans. I always say this every year, and we just had our I think it was our 18th annual scholarship awards banquet for Doughboys last Sunday at
I saw some pictures of that. Yeah.
And to be honest, like I always say that's every year, that's my number one, like, thing I'm prideful with coaching, especially at Doughboys, because, we're really big on building character and building individuals and human beings and just putting good people out there into society. And I think that's huge. And I think if you coach that way and preach all those good things, that the winning just comes along with that. I couldn't really tell you how many New England champs we've had or state champs, or I'm not a numbers guy. I call up my buddy Nick Gamble for that. He's the big numbers guy. He always gives me my stats when I need them. But like I said, it's every year when we give out 15 to 20 scholarships for these kids going into college. And we always have a speaker who's somebody who went through the Doughboy program, who's succeeding in life and comes back and talks to the kids. We have a bunch of coaches that are on our staff that came through the youth and high school program. So that's what I would say is my biggest accomplishment as a coach, is just putting these guys out into the real world and seeing them succeed, and then give back to the sport.
Yeah, like Cam Soda, I saw him coaching Doughboy the other day, that last weekend when I was in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that was awesome, and that was actually a couple of my Lowell guys went to that. And that was one of those things that I think it was a little bit of a last minute that we decided to put a team into that. But we threw it together. They went and competed hard, and it was great. A couple of my Lowell guys had never competed freestyle before. I think one of my guys was mid getting suplexed when he yelled, "I hate freestyle," but
well, he should just wait for the high school season, then it's full.
Yeah. I mean, I tell these guys, for example, one of the guys I'm talking about was a freshman, and he got to wrestle a New England finalist, and just great competition, win or lose. It's like, I think it's so good for you to get out there and see this competition.
100%. And kind of leading into my next question is, how would you describe the current state of wrestling in New England?
I think it's only going up from here, and I think we're in a great spot. I think this is the most competitive that we've been in a long time, if not ever. And you look at, it's awesome watching the NCAA Division I tournament, and you see these guys having success and winning matches of the national tournament. Obviously, we're trying to get more All-Americans and whatnot. But at all the, at Division II, Division III, you see a lot of representation out at the Division III national tournament. So I think it's great. I think it's really I think we took a little bit of a hit during COVID.
Yeah.
But I feel like since COVID, it's just exploded, because I don't know if that was almost like kind of like a you don't know what you got till it's gone type of thing. And then once that was taken away from a lot of these kids, people just want to want to be active. So I think in the 4 years since kind of we've dealt with that, it's been exploding at a rapid rate.
Definitely. And it really is thanks to, clubs like Doughboy, Smitty's, Metro, all the other ones in the area, because without these clubs, where these kids go. So,
right.
It's really
everybody
thanks to the clubs and keeping wrestling going in the off season.
Right. And there's some awesome, good, healthy competition between all the clubs. I think that, iron sharpens iron. So having the competition between all these clubs is great. It's a big change in the past 10, 15 years. What
was the club scene like when you wrestled?
So it's actually, we used to have Red Raiders Wrestling Club, which was out of Lowell High. And we would go like kind of similar to what we do at Doughboys. It'd be Tuesday, Thursday nights, and we called it open mats. But that was kind of before Doughboys, and it was a lot of the kids from all over New England would come. A lot of like the Salem, New Hampshire kids, some of the studs at the time, like Trevor Dearden, Andy LaCroix, some of the old names there. But we had a lot of kids in that room, and I think it was like all my 4 years in high school, I did Red Raiders, and it was really like kind of Doughboys before Doughboys, I want to say. I know Matt Smith was always kind of doing his thing with Smitty's even at that time. So it was really, I think a lot of it was Doughboys and Smitty's in the early days. And then we've always had a good relationship with Carmine with New England Gold. So he was around. Dungeon, I'm thinking back to some of the early days of I competed in the first ever New England Spring Duels in 2000. It was at the Bubble. Wadsworth used to host that. So you had Wadsworth, you had Dungeon, Northeast Elite. I remember working with Ralph Powers a lot through Northeast Elite. So it was growing, and I think now it's just stronger than ever.
Yeah, it's really great. I feel like there's clubs popping up left and right now,
Right.
And how does and these clubs pop up, they're a vital part of the community. What does Doughboy do to give back to the community so people foster a love for wrestling?
So a lot of things. I think like I mentioned, the banquet that we do every year and giving these kids some scholarships. We started a Doughboys Charities program, which is people can donate and we can use it for different things like the scholarships, funds for kids who can't afford to travel for tournaments and stuff like that, funds for kids that can't afford membership fees and stuff like that. So I have to say, like Mike Marshall, who's run Doughboys, he's never been in it for the money. He's never been in it for the clout or whatever you want to call it. It's always been about giving back. And whether it's helping kids financially, like we've never, obviously you got to pay to come to Doughboys, but it's not like we never turn anybody away. Yeah. So if you have to mop mats, you're mopping mats. Like I think Mike Marshall has kind of started that, always giving back and, never turning anybody away. And he's also opened the doors for like the Lowell Youth will use the Doughboy Club to run the Lowell Youth program. And different things like that, giving different people opportunities.
Awesome. Hey guys, I just need to quickly tell you about this great camp coming up. June 22nd and 23rd at Xavier High School in Massachusetts, 2024 world champion Vito Aruba will be in the building, along with two-time Georgia State champ Todd Small and Massachusetts' very own two-time New England champion Eric Reyes. You're not going to want to miss this two-day clinic, June 22nd and 23rd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Registration closes June 18th. So don't miss out on an opportunity to improve, get on the radar, and get ranked. If you're interested, you can email dedhamwrestling@gmail.com or reach out to Eric Reyes at 781-468-8801. That's 781-468-8801. And then, this question, I guess, kind of aims specifically towards like the high school, like Lowell and stuff. Mm-hmm. But how do you handle the balance between, because at the end of the day, these kids are student athletes. So how do you handle the balance between the academics and, the kids' athletics for your team?
Yeah, it's a huge part. I'm lucky to be in the school.
Yeah, so, that's true. That probably plays a big part.
Yeah, being in the school is huge. Obviously, we're a huge high school, but I have access to all the administrators, and I can always check up on kids, how they're doing in school and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just something, not to lie, it's something I battled with when I was in high school and college. I wasn't the best student. I needed wrestling. It was like the one more, I was not a fan of school. I did not like school. I was a smart enough kid, but I just kind of did enough to get by. And I knew I needed my grades for wrestling. So I knew I needed to be eligible. And like I said, Jay Jones will probably laugh if he hears this too, because I battled that in college. There were times that I was super close to not being eligible, but I always was. I was never ineligible, but it was always a battle. So I can relate to these kids. Like I said, you got to find, I think, what motivates you, and wrestling was it for me. And, having a good relationship with your teachers is huge. Don't just be, I always tell these kids, don't just be like another number. Like when they're given their grades and they pull up your name and they barely know who you are, that's not good, because you're not going to get any favors from them. So be vocal, have a relationship with your teachers, and just balance. I think, I've got 7 kids at my house, so I'm a busy man. So when these kids try to tell me, oh, I'm so busy or I don't have time, I just laugh at them. And I say there's always time. So I think it's all about balance and prioritizing things. But I think as a high school kid, you've got plenty of time, even if you're doing multiple sports and taking serious classes in school. There's plenty of time in the day.
Yeah. And, staying on the topic of Lowell, how many state titles? Is it 9 that Lowell
has? 16.
16. Wow.
16 state titles and 5 New England.
Wow. So, where do you see Lowell in the next, 10 years? You hoping to add to those numbers?
Yeah, I think we can start winning state titles ASAP. It's funny, I got some wise words from some wise people, and when I came into this program, and it felt like it was kind of trying to build it up from scratch, because we had like 12 kids on the team. And someone told me, it takes 5 years to build a program. It takes 5 years. And last year was our 6th year. We're in a stacked section in a stacked state with, the prep and Shawsheen and Central Catholic and all these high level teams, which is great. But with that said, it probably takes a little bit longer to get at that state title level. But all you really need is a handful of kids to do really well at the tournament, So, obviously we have Emmett, who's been having a lot of success, and the past
Doobie, right? He just
yeah, he graduated, unfortunately. He's going to wrestle at Bridgewater State, so shout out to him. But yeah, we had a handful of, I think we had 3 state place winners. But you get 4 or 5 guys in the finals, or 4 or 5 guys placing high, and you're right there. So I think in the next couple of years we can compete for state titles.
And you mentioned Emmett. He's on the path to be 4-time New England placer, right?
Yep.
So who was the last? Do you know who the last 4-time New England placer from Lowell was?
I don't think we've had one. I was fortunate enough to be teammates with some of the all-time greats. I had Brian Sheehan and Casey Boyle were both teammates of mine, and they were both 4-time state champs. But I know neither of them placed in New England as freshmen, as amazing as their careers were. And I know that when Emmett was a New England finalist as a freshman, that was the first we'd ever had as a finalist, but I'm not sure if we've ever, freshman New England finalist.
Oh yeah, freshman finalist. Yeah.
I don't know if we've had freshman New England place winners that I can think of.
Except for Emmett.
Right. So being a 4-time place winner would be huge.
Yeah, he's on the path to be sounds like one of the all-time greats for Lowell.
Yeah, I agree.
And and also, where do you see Doughboy in in 10 years? It's already big. Could it just keep going up?
Yeah, I think we're always growing. It's almost like we almost kind of outgrow ourselves sometimes. We got
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. No, we've talked about getting a bigger facility eventually. I just think we're really into the nuts and bolts of it, and I think sometimes the sessions will get a little crazy. We went back to our old way of doing things, where we go 6 to 7:30 the light guys and 7:30 to 9 the heavy guys. because before we were doing a combined practice, and we'd have too many kids, so we'd have to do like a circuit where you're in the weight room, we have 2 wrestling rooms and a weight room, so you do like 30 minutes in each, and you'd rotate. We do this big rotation. So that was like us like almost outgrowing ourselves a little bit. But once you get into like the thick of it with the spring session and whatnot, the numbers will die down a little bit, so it just makes it a little more bearable with the kids in the room. But like I said, I think if the goal was to grow and make money and get a huge facility and all this stuff and sell gear and all that, I think we could. I just don't think that's necessarily what we're in it for or what we're trying to do. So I think keeping it, to a certain size, keeping our closing off our practices at a certain limit, I think it kind of helps keep Doughboys what it is.
Yeah, you can't let it, if it keeps growing, it keeps growing, it gets out of hand, which it seems like a good thing at first, just getting bigger and bigger, but then how much can you control in the end?
Yeah. And we've got a great coaching staff. So we have there's probably like 4 or 5 of us that have been in it for the long haul, but then we always get these guys coming back when they graduate college and coming coaching, and it's huge, I think, for the growth of the program. And some guys stick around for a long time. Some guys will coach for a couple years and then kind of move on to something else. But I think that constant rotation of fresh faces coming in the club and helping out is what makes the program what it is.
And so when you were who impacted you when you were coaching? Would you say that Bossy played an influence in your coaching style and stuff?
Yeah, I would say I've been really lucky to have some really great mentors. So I look at this the same way as like my teaching style is. I feel like it's really important to learn from a lot of different people and kind of pluck what you like out of each of them. And I feel like that's what I've done in high school. I had Coach O'Keefe and Coach Bossy, who were Coach O'Keefe was super, super serious. And at the time, that's what I needed. You would never see this guy crack a smile or laugh. He was very serious all the time, but he would hold you accountable. And I think that's what I needed at the time. So he was really good for me. So like I said, Coach O'Keefe, Coach Bossy, and then I kind of started at Doughboys in 2005, right? My senior year. I didn't really get to wrestle for Doughboys while I was in high school, but the spring of my senior year, I started coaching and wrestling with those guys. But Mike Marshall was always in the Lowell room, so I knew him since I was a freshman. So Mike Marshall, Dave Shuneman were huge influences on me at the club. TJ O'Donnell as well was another huge influence. And then in college, I had Coach Jones and I had Coach Bob Smith, he's a legend in Rhode Island. He coached those back in the day. Coventry had a lot of really winning state championship teams, and he coached all those teams. So I've just been very fortunate between Lowell High, Doughboys, and Rick to have some really good mentors and really good coaches over the years. And I wouldn't say my style is molded off of anyone, but more of a combination of everybody and then a little, my own style.
Yeah. Kind of the last thing I want to ask you is, you've been at Lowell for 6 years now. You said you've been at Doughboy essentially your whole wrestling career.
Yeah.
And you said you got 7 kids that you look after at home. What keeps you passionate and dedicated, after all these years, and I imagine all these years to come?
I just love it. I love coaching. I love seeing, the kids have success and I always say about wrestling, you could have a kid start wrestling as just his senior year and get 1 year out of wrestling. And I think there's so much value to that. And I hear people will say, oh, I wish this kid started early. It's but at least he got exposed to the sport. So I think that's huge. Just, there's so much value in it and being exposed to the sport that keeps me going. I mean, I think I need it for my sanity. Even if I'm slacking working out when I go into practice and on a hot summer day and I show a move and now I'm sweating and then am sweating for the next 3 hours because I showed one move. I think that's huge for my physical health and mental health. But I always say I could be stressed about something. I could have a lot going on in my life, personal life, professional life. But when I go into Doughboys and I put my phone down or throw the music on, it's like I forget everything. And I just love being on the mat. So I just think coaching really does that for me. And I think that's why my wife allows me to still coach after all these years, because I think she knows I need it. And it's just part of me and part of who I am. So I don't see myself ever getting away from coaching.
Well said. Well, Nick, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or touch on?
I do want to shout out my Logan's Rascals summer youth camps that are coming up. They are full, so I really don't have any room, unfortunately. This is the 8th year that I've done these camps, and they're fun. I have an awesome coaching staff. We got Brevin Casella coming in coaching this year. I got the Soda twins. I got Owen and Liam Finn, who are wrestling at Cornell. So almost all my coaches are current college wrestlers or former college wrestlers, the other thing we really pride ourselves in is a 1-to-4 coach to kid ratio, which I don't think a lot of camps do. So when you come to camp, you get your coach, and one coach has 4 kids for the whole camp. That's their responsibility. So just excited to get into that. We start that in a couple weeks, the end of June, and we're doing 5 weeks this year. So excited to get that going.
Yeah, no spots left. So it sounds like people gotta, just book next year early then.
Yeah, for sure. I have a waiting list, so you can get on the waiting list if anyone is really, really interested.
Yeah, I'm sure people will reach out.